Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I am joined by my co-host, Michael Reed. Hall will not be joining us for this episode. He is out. I'm not sure what he's doing today, but I'm sure he's out doing his dad thing, soaking up all that juice. But now we're joined by my co-host, Mr. Michael Reed, and then our guests will be here down the line. But before we get there, the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find us more at www.listenfrederick.com. I'm all over the place, just like the Commanders losing 45-10 to the Dallas Cowboys yesterday in a putrid, embarrassing, unacceptable, but not surprising loss. So, Reed, to get this started, what's your reaction to the loss yesterday before we get into today's news?
Well, before we snap things off, I'm going to go ready, here we go. Dak is so fucking annoying. I'm just going to say it before every snap. No, stop, Dak. I'd rather be a dumpster fire than have to listen to that 70 times a game. But, dude, here we are.
400 yards.
Dak Prescott.
Don Prescott, 400 yards on this defense. It seemed like they could do whatever the heck they wanted. We were kind of talking in the pre-recording. Probably my biggest reaction from this game was that deep touchdown to Brandon Cooks, whereas you have a DB on him, but you also have a safety over top. And Brandon Cooks is able to catch that football by himself, nobody 5 yards near him, turn around and walk into the end zone and not getting hit. That's unacceptable. And what is going on? And that's why I kind of understand the firing of Jack Del Rios and Brent Wieselmeyer, the DB's coach, because what progress have you seen out of the DBs this year? Zero. And look, we got a couple turnovers, which is great. And I know that's what Jack Del Rios wanted coming into this year, but it's almost like we sacrificed good defense just for a couple more turnovers, and it made everything worse.
It's a dumpster fire right now. The defense, like Jack Del Rios, for what everybody's like, it's 2 years too late. Not really. I mean, if you look at it, Jack Del Rios, I mean, our defense was pretty goddamn good last year, despite what people want to think. But it is, I would say it's a couple weeks too late at least. I mean, that was abysmal. And I get Dallas is good. Dallas is really good. Their offense is flying high, but you can't, like you said, our defensive backs should have been a strength this year with all the stuff that we put in there, with Kendall Fuller being severely underrated, Benjamin Juice being very underrated, having a very good year last year, both of them. And then you bring in a rookie first-round pick, Emmanuel Forbes, to create turnovers. You bring in Quan Martin. All of a sudden, they're way worse somehow, and it's like that should have been a strength. And that's the way the NFL works. It's time to go. You got to leave. Bye.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing about Emmanuel Forbes is, like, I'm not going to crap on the kid. I'm not going to blame him for where he was selected. But at this point in the season with Emmanuel Forbes, you should be at a point with him where when he makes a play, you're like, yeah, that's our dude. That's what he does. That's why we drafted him. But when he makes a play, it's almost like, oh, Emmanuel Forbes made a play. And that reality is a bad thing. Just to be able to make a play on the ball just to do your job is a good thing, and that's not acceptable. We need to see more out of you, right? And then Benjamin St. Juste, he's been getting picked on, man. Everyone has been going after him this year. And we were kind of talking like what happened with him, and honestly, I think that he just wasn't heavily targeted in years past, and now teams are saying, okay, well, I'm just going to go tee off on him, and it's worked.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's getting picked on, and I understand. It's almost like anytime you find out somebody's Canadian, you pick on them. You do. Yeah, we did it in elementary school. We did it in middle school. We did it in high school. I still do it, and I'm in my 30s. If I find out you're Canadian, I'm going to pick on you. And it's like the NFL is just like, that's what we're going to do to you, Benjamin St. Juste. So
that thought did come into my mind. I'm not going to lie to you. It totally did. But do you think relieving of the DB coach was a good move?
Was it a good move? No. Terrible. Yeah. Great move. Warranted. That. I don't know what the hell had been going on there. I mean, it really makes you realize why Chris Harris was so coveted by the rest of the NFL, because, like, you never worried about the secondary necessarily. Like, you needed more guys because you were thin. You didn't have that many quality level or highly talented guys, but Chris Harris got the guys that you knew he was going to make changes. You knew these guys were going to be in good position. You knew they were going to have fundamentals. You knew they were. So it just sucks. Now, then you bring in somebody who, just can't get the job done and makes them way worse. And it's more, you got to put the blame on somebody. We'll talk about it later, but you're not going to fire Rivera right now. And Jack Del Rio and the DB's coach, those have been our two weaknesses. At least other positions like the defensive line not generating pressure, you don't have two edge rushers. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's you have basically third string guys starting for you at edge rusher. So it is what it is. You know, you can't really blame them.
Yeah, and speaking of, Washington was losing in the trenches yesterday, early on in that
Dominated.
game, and obviously it bled on through. They didn't get any sacks on Dak Prescott. You could see it early on in that football game. When Sam Howell went to go throw the football, he had to navigate through bodies, he had to watch his feet. There was always somebody in his face. When Dak was on offense, there wasn't much
He
commotion.
didn't even get breathed on.
Right, there no sacks on the day. There was 4 on Howell, and obviously that's just another indictment of what is happening here. And even Tony Pollard, I think, averaged 6 yards per carry. So what
Right.
can you hang your hat on? And I agree with Ron Rivera, where he says this isn't. He just said this in his press conference today, that's going on right now. He said this isn't an indictment on Jack Del Rio or Brent Wieselmeyer. Those guys worked their ass off. Things just weren't coming together, and he's right. It's just nothing was working. It just
No.
and you have to make a change
And
at some point because
right.
you're last in the league in passing in points per game. You're 31st before this week in passing yards, and I think pretty sure with Dak putting up 400, you'd probably be last in the league there too. And
Right.
so it's common sense to say the DB's coach and defensive coordinator are obviously not making connections here, and something needed to happen.
Yeah, I mean you have to. That's just the reality of the NFL. That happens every year. That happens multiple teams. But it is frustrating too because like I don't want to pinpoint blame necessarily on John Allen, Deron Payne. Are they playing up to expectations? No. Are they should be dominating games? I mean, you spend that much money on those two guys to be the cornerstones of your defense. At the same time, and look, I'm not excusing them. Like I just said, that they don't deserve excuses, really. At the same time, getting rid of your two starting edge rushers, generally the offensive line already has numbers on your defensive line. 5 starting offensive linemen, 4 starting defensive linemen. Usually, I mean that's usually how it is. When you have 2 edge rushers that just aren't necessarily effective, all of a sudden you can just key in on those 2 guys inside, stalwart them, easy. We haven't had a lick of pressure except for, I take that back. The Giants game, we kind of dominated it, but against real NFL offensive lines, we haven't. The people don't even breathe on the quarterback, and it's frustrating, but it's kind of like that's par for course, man, and that's going to affect your entire defense when you're built around the pass rush.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And there were so many issues yesterday that I saw. And, like, for instance, the Cowboys, they attacked the edges. This is something that we saw last week the Giants did with Saquon Barkley when that
yeah,
huge run that they had in the second half to open it up. That's what good teams are doing is they're saying, oh, their teeth of their defense is in the middle, but if you attack the edges there, it's wide open because these DBs are struggling to come up and make plays, and the only one that could come up and make tackles on a routine, consistent basis is Cam Curl. So you know what
yeah.
we're gonna do? We're gonna run it to the other side that Cam Curl's not on, and you kind of see what happens over there. And there's so many weaknesses to this point where it's saying, where are these guys progressing and being able to build strength? Because what is their strength? Can they come up and make a play on the run? No.
Right.
Okay. Well, can they defend the pass really well? Sometimes. Maybe on a deep ball you might get a good play on it or not, but
Right.
most likely you're going to get a flag or it's going to be complete.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You saw that early in the game. Dallas immediately was like, "We're just gonna fucking throw it deep. I don't care. We know what they're gonna do, and they're throwing it deep." And that's kind of goes back to like the problem with and look. Obviously, you want to have great defensive tackles. Obviously, that helps a lot. But if you don't have other pieces really around it, then like you can easily kind of you know how to counteract 2 guys in the middle. Like you just said, you just work the outsides. Whereas if you have star guys on the outside, you can kind of fill those gaps on the inside with linebackers, some other people, and it kind of just is what it's kind of just like you kind of reaped you kind of with the way that the roster was built on the defense, you kind of reap what you sow, I guess. But the other thing, man, the secondary, it's just we talked about it a little bit beforehand, and it's so frustrating because the secondary should have been a strength this year. The secondary should have been. I mean, Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste should have progressed. But I mean, Kendall Fuller was one of the most underrated corners in the NFL for a long time. Benjamin St. Juste was very underrated last year, I think. And then you bring in a first-round pick in Emmanuel Forbes. You bring in a second-round pick in Quan Martin. You already have Cam Curl back there, and you're just like, okay, secondary is going to be loaded, and that just hasn't been the case. They've been getting dominated. Other than Cam, they've been getting dominated, and it's weird, man. It's odd.
Yep, and look, like I've said before, you haven't seen Cam Curl on any of those highlight reels, and you probably won't. The kid just goes out there and competes his ass off and tries, and it
Right.
just seems like everything else is falling apart around him. But Rivera just said Christian Garcia will take over for Brent Wieselmeyer as DB's coach. Richard Rogers will remain as senior defensive assistant / safeties coach, but will also help Rivera in with some game planning, which is good news to hear that they have a plan in place, which brings me to my question. How do you feel about Rivera taking over as defensive coordinator in play calling duties? Because I talked about this with Hall a couple weeks ago. He really wanted Rivera to be fired, and I said, look, and Jack Del Rios, and I said, look, the that's not realistic. Let me give you this thought. What about Rivera taking over as defensive coordinator if they were to fire Jack Del Rios? I feel like that's probably a better way to go about things. And look, that's the reality we're facing. So how are you feeling about that?
Honestly, I mean, obviously the defense needs a shot in the arm, and I like it. I mean, they weren't responding to Jack. Let's not. I know how people feel about Rivera. Ron Rivera is a hell of a defensive coordinator. That's why he became a head coach. That's why he got the position with the Panthers. There was years where Ron Rivera was talked about as being a head coach because he did so well with the Chargers and all these and some of these other teams. He was very well respected. He was a good defensive coordinator. If he can get back to that, if he gives a shit enough to be like, all right, this is what we're gonna do, and I think he does because Ron's tends to be. I know a lot of people make the joke that he looks checked out, but I think that this could be a real big shot in the arm. I hope so. I hope he kind of gets back to his roots and fires these guys up, does whatever he needs to do. But I like it. I think that it's honestly the best case scenario that you can have with this coaching staff is having Ron Rivera call the defense.
Yeah, and look, you can say whatever the heck you want, but a lot of people wanted Rivera to be fired, and I said, look, what do you really expect to happen? Because Rivera is not doing much; he's overseeing things. It's not like you're not going to get anything a positive out of it because he's not really doing much. This allows him to be able to have his fingerprint on something immediate, and that way the not Rivera, Harris and company can actually evaluate Rivera at the end of the year to say, look, you had control of the defense. It still continued on the path that it was. You built it. There is no excuse around it. We're going to go in a different direction and mutually parting ways. I know everyone wants Rivera fired, but I've said this for a while, man. If anything, you're expect a mutual parting of ways. And
Right.
if you've been waiting for Rivera to be fired, I'm sorry, dude. If anything, expect them to say, at the end of the season, we're going to have a mutual parting of ways rather than just firing right here and there. It doesn't help anything. It doesn't.
That's the thing. It's coming. He's gonna get fired, like it or whatever, or he's gonna walk
Right.
away. It's coming. It's inevitable, pretty much. Like they're gonna start new. There was not much Rivera could have done unless they won a couple playoff games, regardless, and that's not happening. He's gone. He's gonna be gone. And I get people don't like him, and I know people are like, what kind of respect do we have to show for him? Look at the roster that he built, and the roster. I mean, to be fair, we all coming into the season, everybody thought that this team was going to be pretty good. We're like, we got depth at great positions. We got things just don't work out sometimes. It happens every year to multiple teams. Multiple teams don't live up to expectations. But Rivera, say what you will, I know this isn't going to be popular and people are tired of hearing it, but Rivera did do a hell of a job dealing with all the stuff that was going on when we were here. I think you do kind of owe him. Just be like, look, man, yeah, we don't want to tarnish your name any more than it already has been. You just walk away at the end of the season. Season's lost after all this anyway, and
Exactly.
is what it is.
Exactly.
So, guys, everybody needs to calm down about that. He's gone. He's already gone. He's going to be gone. Don't worry.
That's exactly right. And obviously, Josh Harris coming from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who never have to fire a coach. Yes, they win a lot. But the reason is because they are consistent in the way that they allow their front office to navigate. Moving from Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin, easy transition of power. When they had their GM leave, going to the new guy, Amir Khan, I think, or something like that, when they switched to him as GM, it was an easy transition of power. Whereas if you go in firing Rivera right now, that's not an easy transition of power because now you're having to fix everything that's there that Ron is controlling and all the people in place that he has that he hired that like him.
That he brought here from Carolina.
Right.
That he has
You're going to be having to deal with fires. And does Josh Harris and company, do they have somebody in place that can deal with that at the moment? On top of putting that on top of Eric Bieniemy, who's now having to control the entire operation without a defensive assistant? None of it made sense. But that being said,
at least Jack Del Rios got fired, guys.
Yes. Sorry. But that being said, that brings the question of mine to you. Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy. A lot of people are piling on Eric Bieniemy today. And look, rightfully so. They had 75 offensive plays. The Cowboys only had 50. And even with 75 offensive plays, even though they were 7 of 15 on third down, They only had 10 points on the day. That's not acceptable at all. I know that Dallas's defense is very good, but we need to see better out of this offensive unit. How do you feel about them moving forward? Because Sam Howell is the big cog in this, Michael. A lot of people are saying if you have a high draft pick, you should be going to get the quarterback there. But now you're kind of crapping on Howell if you don't think he's the franchise guy. And now is EB going to be here? Do you have to hire a GM who's cool with EB if he's going to be retained? A lot of questions.
Yeah, and it's funny because a football season when you're a bad team is such a roller coaster. Like especially if you're like a middle of the pack like we have been for the last few years. It's like, oh, we'll string together some wins. Everybody's sucking off EB and Sam Howell. Then you get some losses, and then it's like they suck. Eric Bieniemy, Scott Turner. Yeah, shut up. Just stop. I understand what you're saying. He's not Scott Turner. He's actually strung together some pretty good games this year. Was he good this week? Was he good against the Giants? I mean, that's up for debate. Obviously, he wasn't good this week, but that happens sometimes. It's a learning process, and it sucks. I get that, but let's not act like everybody wasn't just a few weeks ago being like, dude, EB's gonna be the head coach. He needs to be the head coach. Look at what he's done with Sam Howell. Sam Howell leads the league in this. Sam Howell leads the league in that. He's a young quarterback. I don't want. Now all of a sudden, it's like after this game, it's like he's Scott Turner. He's worse than Scott Turner. Just stop. Just stop. That's not the case. And will he be here next year? I don't know. Probably not. To be honest with you, I think that they're going to clear house with everybody, and it's warranted. But just stop acting like it's like we're so goldfish brained. I say it all the time, but we are goldfish brained. It's like 1 second you remember, and then all of a sudden a few days later you're like, oh, we're going to win this weekend. And then the same thing happens. It's just a cycle, and it keeps happening. It's just like, guys, just look at the bigger picture. Just pump the brakes a little bit. Relax.
Yeah, EB and Sam Howell are obviously the huge cogs into this whole scenario because, yeah, it's easy to say you should fire everybody and have Howell start over with a new OC like Ben Johnson or a new head coach next season. Right. But my whole issue is his junior year at UNC, he had to get a new offensive coordinator. He had to adapt to a new game plan, which restricted his production. Coming into his rookie year, he had Scott Turner learning a new system. Then he gets fired at the end of the year. So now this year he comes in with a new OC, his third OC in 3 years if you count college. And then you want to fire EB now and have Sam possibly start under a new OC in his fourth year? You're begging for him to regress. That's what happened to Jason Campbell. That's not a recipe for success. So this scenario is very, very important for the long-term structure of this football team. And I'm not sure if Eric Bieniemy was only brought here because of Rivera. I do question that. I do think that there is a structure in place here, but my thing is what we have learned up until this point is that Eric Bieniemy needs help. He is a good play caller. He is growing as a play caller. He's not perfect by any stretch, but he might need some help with route concepts with wide receivers and such. And so am I going to look bad on going into next season that Eric Bieniemy is still the assistant head coach with a better way of going about the passing route situation and being able to help in that breath? I'm not angry with that, especially if we have a defensive-minded head coach coming in here like somebody like Mike Macdonald from the Ravens. OGWCC has been raving about Mike Macdonald with the Ravens. Fantastic defensive coordinator that would actually coincide and work well with Eric Bieniemy. But that being said, you'd also want the kind of veteran coach with like the Wade Phillips, Sean McVay aspect with the Rams. You kind of want that with Eric Bieniemy, but on the defensive side. And that would beg to question somebody like Bill Belichick. And I think that's a good relationship to have. So I think Howell is the big cog in this. Me personally, I've been bought in with Howell. I think we need to look forward with him and having that top 5 pick. I think we need to get the best freaking player possible. Just an impact player, somebody you could put on the field right away that is productive, that you feel comfortable with, and will do their job. We cannot have any more first rounders that we're expecting to grow to be productive. That's counterproductive for what this football team needs.
Especially if you're picking as high as you think we're likely to pick. Like you have to. We can't have a repeat. I know Chase was good his rookie year. I know I've always sung the praises of Chase, and I do like Chase, but it was a failed experiment, obviously, because he's not here anymore, and a lot of the time was lost. He didn't produce the sacks that you wanted him to produce. So you can't do that when you're picking this. You need to hit on these high draft picks. You need to be able to say, look, we got this guy. This guy's a game changer. And you're right. At this point, I don't think it matters. I don't care if you're taking an edge defender, which we need. I don't care if you're taking Brock Bowers as a tight end, which we need. That would help the passing game a lot. I don't care if you're taking an offensive tackle, which we will probably need, obviously. it doesn't just get somebody that's going to produce the best player that is there. And hey, if you're there and Drake May or Caleb Williams for whatever reason is there, and you do feel whatever the offensive coordinator is or the new coaching staff is, if they want to start over, yeah, that sucks because I'm kind of on the Hal train still. I mean, I think we've seen a lot from Hal, a lot of good things, and he's still a young quarterback. I think you can really grow with him, but you can either trade back or you take somebody, and hey, if they want to restart, I don't care. I just want the season to be over and see where the direction is going. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and to add on top of that very confusing, difficult situation of Sam Howell and EB, everyone knows that this is what my expectation is that they're going to announce a mutual parting of ways, and that and then in that announcement they're going to be saying, right now we are searching for the GM, and we're going to be interviewing GMs to bring in here and to hire. Am I going to say that GM is an idiot because he wants to spend that top 5 pick on Marvin Harrison Jr.?
No.
You know what I mean? Like, whatever they
blue
decide,
chip prospect like that, right?
Whatever you decide, let's rock, dude. Let's go. I don't care. And like, that's my thing right now, is just understand that this is a very difficult situation. It's fluid. It's constantly moving. But the one thing I can guarantee is that Josh Harris and company, when they sent the bid in for this football team to buy it, they had a plan in place. They had a list of people that they wanted to contact, that they wanted to bring in here. And that plan is what I am banking on. And that plan, literally, it's impossible for that plan to be in place during this season because they bought this team 2 weeks before the season. So they said to themselves, this season basically is a wash. We're starting over in January or February. That's when we're going to really kick the tires on what we want to get done. Yeah. But this was a message today in saying, it's not okay where we are. We're not tanking. We're not okay with this. We're not going to be reactionary to the point of Dan Snyder-esque, but this is going to be a consistent transition of power because that is in the best interest of everybody. I cannot stress that enough. You hire a guy one time, and let's be like the Steelers. 20 years that guy being the coach because he's successful. That's the kind of consistency you need, and it all starts with a mindset. Every action has a reaction. And by firing Rivera mid-season, it's going to have repercussions down the line. I promise you that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And also, who's to say? I mean, look, let's be honest. I know that tampering and stuff is illegal, but who's to say that he doesn't already have somebody who's like, I mean, give it a couple weeks after people are fired, you're our GM. They already have an agree. Who knows? I mean, that happens all the time in the NFL. I guarantee it happens all the time in pro sports. It happens all the time in life.
Right.
But it's kind of like I see people shitting on Josh Harris all the time right now. And that's the other thing. It's like I understand you're frustrated. We had high expectations this season. You also got to kind of step back again, kind of look at the bigger picture and be like, was I maybe out of line for thinking that year one under a new owner was going to be anything more than just kind of a test run, feeling things out, see where we're at? Because that's what it is right now. We're still in year one. We're still adjusting. He's not worse than Snyder. Get that shit out of here. He's not. That's such a dumb take. I hate him as much as Snyder. You don't. You're saying that because you're going off of your feelings at the point, and you're reactionary when you just need to take a breath, breathe, relax a little. Not going to be worse than Snyder. I don't think many owners in the history of sports have been worse than Snyder. Right. And it's just, guys, maybe the fans are the issue at some point, where it's like you take a step back and you're just like, things didn't go exactly how I want. Fire them. And you guys cause an uprising, and then all of a sudden Snyder would listen to it and people would listen to it, and it's like, guys, fucking stop. Maybe I don't know, if you get divorced, maybe you kind of got to look and be like, well, what did I do wrong? Just pump the brakes. I know we don't have any say in it, so honestly that take is probably dumb, but just relax. You're making it worse for everybody. Jesus Christ. And you know what, why isn't Hamas eliminated? I'm just kidding.
No, dude, you're absolutely right about everything that you said. Up to this point, I've tried to be adamant and try to let people know just how I feel, and I feel like a lot of people are just being reactionary, being very emotional, and they just want to sell because they're not happy, right? They've lost a bunch of games, and so the only way that they can achieve happiness is by celebrating the firing of Jack Del Rios, of Ron Rivera, because then they're right, because they knew the problems with them, and what they're clamoring for is that Josh Harris to say, we support what you guys want and what you guys feel. And to be perfectly honest, like Ref the District saying, oh, this is time to kind of start questioning Josh Harris because he hasn't done anything with Ron Rivera. So wait a minute, man. I love you guys, but you're tripping right now. Like they haven't even gotten started yet. Come on. Like,
Yeah.
trust what they're doing and trust their plan. Like, you really thought that the guy who came from the Steelers, who literally never have controversy in their front office, the one guy that brought controversy to them, Antonio Brown, they sent him off in a rocket. And you really thought he was going to come in like Rambo? No,
Yeah.
dude, he's going to have a consistent and good structure the way that good organizations do. And the good organizations, you don't hear a lick about their front office. They just make changes and everything goes about like it should.
Right.
And that's something, that's the blueprint. That's the blueprint that I want to follow. I don't want to follow the blueprint of Snyder, of being reactionary, of firing the head coach, and just using him as to be able to pedestal to send a message. Well, down the line, other candidates are going to say, well, if you sent a message about him, are you going to do the same thing about me if stuff goes like bad? And that kind of doubt is what creates the Dan Snyder regime. And that's what you want to stay away from. And that's why Harris and company are doing the right thing by keeping Rivera until the offseason when the plan gets initiated.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, I don't know, I don't even remember exactly what we were talking about.
We're just talking at this point. We're just complaining. But let's get to our fan questions. This one from the Colonel. He asks, Reed, describe how you see the rest of the season playing out. Whether we are showcasing players to trade or actually trying to win football games, where do you think the emphasis lies?
All right, so here's going to be a shocker. I think it's going to be almost exactly like the beginning of the season, where you're going to see some good games where people get pumped all over social media. You're going to see some really bad games, and is what it is at this point. That's kind of just, we know what kind of football team this is, and as I've said before, they don't know what kind of football team they are, so that's kind of what you see with them. And what was the rest of the question? Is there going to be an emphasis on like getting players playing times up to trade them, or kind of whatever it is?
Yeah, like, do you think the emphasis of the season is basically like a prolonged preseason where it's just evaluation and to see who you can trade and who you cannot? Or do you think they're actually going to try to win some football games?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're tanking. I don't think that they're giving up. I think that they would obviously like to win some football games. Will they? Who knows? I mean, they haven't been able to win football games when they were trying to win football games. So I don't think that it's going to be a preseason type thing. I do think that if they were smart, which it's debatable, they would get a lot of these young guys playing time, just get them out on the field, get them experience. I think that's kind of what you do in this scenario. But will they do that? I don't know. I do think that they'd like to win games. So it's tough, but yeah, I think that they're going to try to win. I really do. And will they be successful in that? Maybe a game or two, maybe, but it is what it is.
Yeah, because Colonel, it's like a two-handed kind of thing, right? Because if you say that you're looking to get production up with these players so they can trade them, then you're asking for them to produce a lot in order, and they might be able to get some wins out of it. So I do think at the end of the day, winning is obviously the objective. But based on how I see the rest of the season playing out, I see us putting up good fights, but not getting the job done. I think at this point, without saying and stating the obvious, I think the draft pick is the biggest emphasis here. And I think it always was, and it always will be, and because that is the most enticing thing for future candidates who they could bring in as GM here, is
right.
Giving them shiny objects to say, you got $90 million cap space, you got a top 5 pick, multiple second rounders in the high end of things. You could really turn stuff around in a quick minute and make yourself look really good if you want to come here.
Right. Oh, real fast. I remember what it was. On the Snyder Harris thing. I'm sorry, I don't know why this just popped into my head. The thing that it's like fans all trying to call the shots and be like, this person should be fired, this person should. For us as fans, it's easy as hell to say that, because you're looking and you're like, they're not living up to my expectations. They're playing bad. Something's got to change. And I understand. I do it all the time. I'm on board with that 90% of the time. But you got to remember, the NFL is a business. Josh Harris, like you said, he invested a lot of money into this. This is a process. This is not just a reactionary, let's fire everybody, let's get everybody. Unfortunately, this is a thing where it's like he wants to be able to make the best decisions for the team going forward. And to your point earlier, I don't think that necessarily firing everybody right now mid-season is what's best for the organization, the players, for Josh Harris's name as an owner, so I mean, it's just I don't know. That's what I'm saying. The other day, speaking of random thoughts in my ADD brain, I was thinking, and how funny would it be? You know the song "The Boys Are Back in Town"?
Yeah.
What if that song wasn't sung from the perspective of one of the boys? It was sung from the perspective of a loser in the town who's just really excited that the cool kids are coming home from college. He's just running down the street like, the boys are back in town. The boys are back in town. He's all pumped about it.
How long have you been thinking about this?
I thought of it yesterday when I was making dinner for Thanksgiving.
You should stop making dinner. Stop making dinner.
That's funny. That's pretty
That
funny.
is funny.
That is
But I
funny.
understand your
You're
point.
telling me the boys are back in town?
It's just
He
a
sits
weird.
2 tables away and tries to chime into their combos.
And speaking of weird, I had this random guy go on a rant on me today about Junior Galette. It was so weird. This random dude. He called me a
Galette's
cracker
nice
too.
guy. Well, you
Yeah.
are a cracker, to be
No,
fair.
I am a cracker, but no, he said he was like, how come Trent Murphy doesn't play a season, gets 20 million, but Junior Galette gets nothing? Explain that, cracker. I was like, damn, dude, like calm down. And now we are joined by our next guest.
What did you say though, Kyle? Could you explain it or not?
I said Junior Galette is not the first or last person to not be paid what they should be. It's life.
Yeah,
Get
technically,
over it.
I'm not paid what I should.
And now we are joined by our boy Deuce from Redzone in the lab
There
to
he
be able
is.
to. I'm not going to say celebrate, but it might be for a celebration for a lot of you out there. How you doing, brother?
Good. How y'all doing?
Good. DeSantis, did you hear? DeSantis.
DeSantis.
Jack, same person. Jack Del Rios.
Yeah, real close, right?
Jack Del Rios stormed the Capitol because he thinks his job got stolen from him. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, he reactivated his Twitter account. He's
Did he
going
really?
ham right now. No,
Is he really?
See,
I was like, damn.
let's see.
There
I
we
can joke
go.
right with you.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
He's gonna activate and upload a dick pic right away. Just as
Oh,
No, he's
my
gonna
God.
upload it with his mugshot on a t-shirt. And he's gonna say,
But Deuce,
buy here at DonaldTrump.com.
Deuce, I wanted to get your opinion before we start answering fan questions. But obviously, the news just came out. They did fire Jack Del Rio and Brent Wieselmeyer, and obviously in the chat, we always talk about these sort of things, and I know how you kind of feel. What is your reaction to the firing and Ron Rivera taking over play calling for the defense?
I think it helps appease the fans. I don't think there's going to be much change because even if the defense looks better, then Ron Rivera is still to blame because you sat and watched and you didn't step in early
Correct.
enough. I don't think he woke up this morning and made the decision to fire him. I think the conversations was had after this past Sunday's debacle. And Josh told him, I think Ron probably vouched for him. We know how loyal Ron is to his coordinators. And look, I don't think he walked in Josh's office at all. It's the day after Thanksgiving, so I know they not working. But I think it's something that was already in the works. And Josh was like, hey, look, it's either going to be both of y'all or just him. So, make a decision. And
And Ron was like, oh, never mind, go ahead. They threw
Nah,
each other under the bus.
yeah, I mean, like he can, I don't think a lot of changes is going to be made, and he might change the defensive coverage a little bit, but I don't think we're going to see this massive flip at all.
That's why I like you, Deuce, because you're smart. You put two and two things together. You know that they're not working here on Friday. But I will say this. You know that altercation that supposedly happened on the sideline? Like that nobody's really talking about, that Rivera didn't want to highlight at all, didn't want to be talking about it. Like, let's say there was something actually there. If Jack was probably the wrong one in that situation, it wouldn't surprise me if Rivera voluntarily did it. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if you guys heard me or not, if I skipped. But
No, we heard it.
but that's the kind of thing where I could understand why Rivera would do that. But I think you are correct in saying that this is what was needed, man. I mean, at the end of the day, the defense is unforgiving, unacceptable. For this defense to be 32nd in points per game. 32nd,
Right.
bro.
Especially, I mean, like we talked about earlier, like you have, I know I literally already said it, so it's kind of beating a dead horse, but I just want to hear my sick thought process. You guys know me. And like this defense should have been so good this year. Updating the secondary, improving the secondary should have been improved. You're adding a first-round pick, a second-round pick to what already had some talent with Benjamin St. Juste back when he was talented and didn't TikTok dance, and Kendall Fuller, and then you got the D-line, and then now all of a sudden it's like you kind of set yourself up for failure here after those two edge rushers are gone. You can't really get much pass rush when you're facing a non-high school offensive line like the Giants have. Now all of a sudden it's just like your DBs are exposed. Jack Del Rio's not reaching the guys. The dude whose last name starts with a V, the fucking Wieselmeyer or whatever his name is, they're not connected with guys. Changes have to be made. It's the NFL, and it's frustrating, and it sucks. But this is kind of what you can expect the rest of the season, unfortunately. Rivera might provide a little bit of a spark, and he's probably the best person for the job in that building. Obviously, he is because he was a great defensive coordinator. But there's only so much you can do at this point. It feels like there's just big lack of communication, and maybe these guys just don't gel well together. Who knows? And I'm sorry if you hear a robot in the background. James just started playing with his robot. I can't turn down.
Yeah, of course. But let's get some fan questions, Deuce. This one is from Tim Towner, and it's a really, really good one. McLaurin, Payne, Allen, Leno, and Wiley are the biggest cap hits for 2024. Any chance we part with any of them? And if so, which ones?
Well, I think Wiley, you'll probably endure dead money cap close to what he'll be getting paid. So he may be here next year, even if it's as a backup. I think Leno don't have any more guaranteed money, so that may be something they can get rid of. Now, the Payne Allen and Terry thing is kind of interesting,
Very.
right? There are so many different variables to it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the variables is I think Allen doesn't have as much guaranteed money, I don't believe. So you can easily get off his contract or extend it. I think it's very friendly,
right?
In a sense of being able to do things with it or whatever. Payne, not so much. But when it comes to moving them, because I never believe that they're doing any type of rebuild because of Payne and Sweat, because you when you're in a full rebuild, you're trading players that's under contract. They didn't do that. That doesn't say rebuild to me. When it comes to Terry and John Allen, regardless of how you feel about them and their production, this team still needs faces, right? This team still needs faces that the fans can relate to. They still need those faces. So that's why it'll be very interesting to me if they do decide to move on. And you still need vets. You still need vets that play at a high level. It might not be consistently playing at a high level, but that'll be very interesting to me because if they move on from them, you need a face. And nobody here right now can be that face. Maybe not Sam. It just depends, but he's still a 5th-round pick. Not saying that somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr. can't be a face because he has it all. Right. He has the production his last 2 years. He has the history on his side. So he has everything to be the face of a franchise. But somebody like Brock Bowers or Olu, they do not. So what this team is going through, needing to try to build this fan base back, repair these relationships, get prepared for like a stadium and being able to bring players to these meetings, because that's what they want to do, right? Like you want to bring star players to these meetings, and there's no one on this team now that they could bring to those meetings. So I'd be real surprised if they moved on from both of those players, especially. One I could see, but I don't see them moving on from both of them.
Yeah, and I hope that they would move on from McLaurin. But I think Leno and Wiley are probably your biggest bets moving forward. But that's the funny thing, Deuce and Tim.
With Leno, it depends on if his father, Kayvon Thibodeau, needs him home for dinner or not, I guess.
Oh, gosh. But the funny thing is that it's all based on the GM. And this is the big question looking forward. With the GM that comes in place here, is he going to be happy with what he has at his disposal? Or is he going to want to recoup as much revenue as he can possible, and revenue meaning draft picks? So would he be willing to part with your most productive in the sense of recouping assets in McLaurin and Payne and Allen? And those are the juiciest pigs right now for an incoming GM that really wants to make his mark on the team. And that's probably the scary part, is nobody truly knows what direction his team is going because nobody knows who the GM is going to be. I guarantee that Josh Harris and company know, and we just don't know what their tendencies are. And if we are going a GM approach, they're going to have the write-off. And we can say all day that Terry's going to be here, but if that guy wants to come in and make some moves, he can damn well do it.
Yeah.
What about you, Reed?
What about me, Kyle? I think it's time we start taking political issues into account for this, Kyle. I think we need to start talking.
And that being said, the next question from Tim. That being said, Reed. That being said, the next question from Tim Towner: what is the one word to describe your emotional state as we once again have reached this point in the season?
My emotional state? Numb. You know, sometimes I like to go on Twitter and start fights so that way I just know that I can feel something at all. I'm used to it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, sure, I rage. Sure, I road rage. Sure, I take it out on my loving family all the time because my football team doesn't live up to my expectations. But, you know, if you don't talk about it, you don't got to deal with it. So I'm just used to it. I'm just riding the wave, dude. I'm just waiting for one day before I die, hopefully, before I meet my early maker at probably the tender age of like 38 or something. I'm 33 now, that I will at least see close to a championship team with the football team. So I'm just, you know, It's been my whole life. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah, yes, it is. One word to describe the emotional state where we are again, I'll say a tsunami. And the only reason is like I just feel stupid myself for not seeing the reality for what it was coming into the season. You know, you get the rescinding of the water, right? And you're kind of seeing things boil down, but then you're saying, well, they could bring it back. And then you see the water starting to rise again. You're like, oh, the water's back. But now the water is actually higher than it ever was before. And the next thing you know, the entire town is wiped out. And that's where I'm at right now. Is that, you know, just feeling like just getting completely smacked in the face out of left field just because of nobody. This was a top 5 defensive. This number 1 in third down conversion rate last season. It wasn't like they were any slouches. It wasn't because of the competition they were playing against. Nobody expected them to go back this far in a lot of those categories. It's really depressing.
Yeah, for me, man, is a compound word. Turkey legs.
Explain to the people at home what compound means. And by that, I mean me. Explain to me what a compound word is.
Montgomery County education.
Bringing 2 words together, putting a dash in between it. That's what I am right now. Like I am. That's how I'm feeling. And it's cool. Like I'm not really excited. I didn't come in this season with high expectations. I know you all probably like I posted and talked about it in a chat space about this season being a season where I can't lose. You know, with the new ownership, and
Right.
and I kind of set those expectations throughout the whole season. You know, you do get upset, you do things, but I always was kind of looking forward to this off season and seeing, you know, how a real, you know, organization looks and how it's ran and things that's happening now and it's not happening. How can we say this is not how things are supposed to be? How can we say that, you know, the owners not making moves so they don't care? Like, how do we know? How do we know what a good franchise looks like? Like, how are we to make that determination?
You're cooking, dude. Just keep going.
That's so true too, though, because it's like before, like everybody knew this was going to be a trial year. It was all, you know what I'm saying?
I did.
And it's like, no, I mean, we thought that. I mean, we obviously we thought we had a talented roster. We thought we had depth. We thought that we had the coaching staff in place where like we could surprise people. We could be pretty good. But the reality of it was, but to be honest with ourselves, what are the chances Rivera even keeps his job after this season? What are the chances? So, and you know, with a new owner, they wanted to clear house anyway. So it's like right now, it's just kind of people just got to remember that it is what it is right now. All we can focus on is going forward. At least goddamn Napoleon Bonaparte is not here anymore. You know what I'm saying? That little short tyrant, that little demon man, that little chicken fucker, you know, at least he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at least he is gone, and that is the good thing. Like to Deuce's point, I just wish I had Deuce's wisdom throughout this season, man, because I could have definitely used. I was stressed out and pissed off for a lot of those games. But the next question, Deuce, is from Tim Towner again. As the horse is now out of the barn, any prediction as to how long the 2 Martys join JDR on the unemployment line?
Yeah, that definitely probably is not going to be at the end of the season. I mean, look how this firing went.
Yep.
They ain't mentioned nothing about Marty. Like they say Marty and Ron walked into his office, and they say Marty and Ron had none of that. So they're probably already being, you know, pushed out in a sense, in the background. Like I've been having this running joke about how, you know, there's someone there right now that's been there. It could be the janitor, the chef, the groundskeeper. Somebody is watching and reporting back to Josh Harris about the day-to-day things. I mean, even when Sheen came in, I was telling people, I was like, look, he's been here. Like he's been here, he's been watching, he's been analyzing, he's been doing no. It says he don't start to November 6th. He don't stop. Then the trade happened to say that he was involved.
Like it's so funny.
Like 2 weeks before he was supposed to start. I'm telling y'all, like these things, this is the NFL. You can't trust what they put out in front of you.
Dude, seriously, they do not give a crap about telling the truth to the media. They do not. I'm sorry.
Got the janitor from The Longest Yard right now.
Yeah, see? Yep. Yeah. See what I'm saying?
He's like, yes, my lord. Yes. Yep. The Martys have entered the quarters. Ron is alone right now, my lord. Now's the time to strike.
Stupid. Now, this next question, read, is from our boy Scott Hartley in the UK. Oi!
What?
He said, I generally don't know what to say after an inept performance like last night. Trying to find a positive, which is difficult. Is there anything on the roster that we can build around, like B-Rob or Sam? And how long will it take to fully rebuild? 2 to 3 seasons?
Well, look, it's not hard to find a positive when Magic Johnson. I think that It's going to take a few seasons. Yes. I mean, look, I mean, this, like I said, this kind of happens with teams every year where teams don't live up to the talent that they have. And maybe we keep some of the core guys in place. Maybe the rebuild won't be as long as some people are thinking it will, but generally rebuilds can take some time. And I know, like, even the Lions rebuild, it took a season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons, for them to finally get where they're at. So you got to have the quarterback in place. You got to have some good supporting players around him. And do we have that in Sam Howell right now? If Sam Howell is the guy, and like next season he progresses even more despite everything going on, then the rebuild's going to be a lot faster. But if it's not, then it's gonna take some seasons. So you got about 3 more years to be depressed at, probably on average.
Yeah, and Scott, I will say this: is there anything we can build around on the roster? I definitely think so. You got Sam Howell, you got Terry McLaurin. I think Brian Robinson is somebody you could really build around. He has shown progression in every essence of his game. Obviously, Terry McLaurin is the dude that is doing. It doesn't matter if, like, with Terry, you could draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Do you think Terry's going to be really that pissed off? Like, he's going to do whatever the heck you ask him to do, right? He's still going to go into work, and that's why you can build around Terry. He's the Darryl Green of the offense, and he should retire a Commander. The other one is Tress Way. I'm surprised nobody has said it this far. The Tress Way is obviously someone you can build around, one of the best players in this roster. So, yeah, there's a lot of positives here. And then with the rebuild, again, I'm going to have to go with the cop-out answer. The rebuild answer, we do not know, because the GM could come in here and say, I can't turn this around in 1 or 2 years. So what we have to do is we have to rip everything down in order to achieve that as fast as possible. Instead of waiting 5, let's rip all this down. So in year 3, we're in a good position to move forward. All of this could change with the GM, but there are positives here. There are things that a GM could come do and rip apart, and we'd all be pissed, but you'd have to trust the process, to be honest. So, honestly, the rebuild with this football team should only take a year. It should, but Lord knows whatever the hell happens, because every time we get hyped about this team, something bad happens.
That's the old team.
Yes, you're right. You're right, Deuce.
Right,
you're right.
Right.
You're right, Deuce. You're right.
This is a new regime. But, yeah, I think we have pieces. And it does depend on the GM. The GM could come in here and say, you know what? I went over to all the analytics. I watched the film. I looked at player development. And I believe if I put the right coaches in place, this team could be competitive next year. Adding this, and that, right? I have, 4 picks in the top 100. Actually, the 5th pick is just outside of 100.
Right.
You could have close to $100 million in cap space. You don't have a lot of crazy contracts like the Blue people with having $40 million next year to a backup 3rd string quarterback.
By the way, Kayvon Thibodeau's the Daniel Jones of their defense. He's about to make so much money off of playing the Commanders twice a year.
And I told them that, and they got mad at me. And DeVito is probably going to get a $15 million deal this offseason because of the game against us. So, like, when you see these type of things and you see all this, it just really depends on the GM.
Yeah.
All the players, especially Sam Howell. Sam Howell has to make it very difficult for the next regime to draft a quarterback. And it's unfair. I've been saying it all year. Yes, it's unfair. I get it. But this is what it is. Like, he's going to be playing for his NFL career. Easy, he's going to be a starter or he's going to be a backup. But he has to make it difficult for them.
Absolutely he does. Absolutely he does. And it's fun times to be where we are. It's exciting. It's exciting yet depressing, Deuce. Now, last question we have is from the Discord. I'm going to get it to you real quick. I lost it right here. How long do you think it will take for fans and media to adjust to the new process versus the expectations forged by how previous ownership conducted business?
I don't know. Like, they should already be kind of like seeing differences.
Thank you.
If you can't see it, then you're just still caught up in how things used to be. And I don't blame you. You've been dealing with something for so long. They've been treating you bad for so long, but you just love them so much you didn't never want to leave them. And then when you do leave them, right? And then when you do leave them, you find somebody else, and that person has to be strong enough to take all the punishment from what you should have did to the previous person So then they either going to stay or go, and they may end up leaving. And then here you go again all by yourself.
And it's a cycle. Yeah.
And it's a cycle that continues. So for me, I've already let them go. I don't have unfinished business. That's the problem. A lot of you still have unfinished business with the little man in France. That's the problem. Figure out what that unfinished business is, finish it, close the book, put a period at the end, and move on. Yeah. Because if you don't, you're going to end up being depressed while everyone else.
Thank you.
Forgiveness.
Dude, that's why I love Deuce so much. Deuce, I know you're a fan of the movie Couples Retreat. And you
I love it.
That's a great movie.
You just did the best part in the movie where he says, we're not going to point any fingers here, but you're the problem. You're the problem.
Exactly. John Favreau in that is so funny.
Exactly.
John Favreau's hilarious.
And Deuce is absolutely right in saying that if you're sitting here saying that this ownership needs to do this way, and if they don't, I'm going to be upset, you're setting yourself up for failure because first and foremost, you are not used to this process. You are used to the reactionary, the emotional response. You are not used to seeing intellect. You are not used to seeing an adult actually orchestrate the strings behind the scenes. And that's what we are seeing finally. So yeah, I'll say, to be honest, probably going to take about 5 years for people to get used to it. Just being honest with you. And you've already seen people today questioning Harrison if they really want to win, if they have to send a message. You understand that message doesn't need to be sent. You spent $6 billion on this team. I'm pretty sure you want to win. I'm just being honest with you. He doesn't need to convince me with a stupid message by trying to pull somebody down just to make everyone else happy because they can't deal with losses. I
mean, think about it, right? You can say, "Oh, it's the NFL; it's going to be profitable." Yes, it is going to be profitable, no doubt. Right. Good team or bad team, it's the NFL. It's going to be profitable. But if we were winning, had a winning culture, had put some winning records together, was looked at as a premier franchise, they could have easily got $9 billion for this team, easily.
Right? Even when they were a dumpster fire, they were still one of the most valuable friends. Well, we are a dumpster fire, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah, so for sure. Just imagine if you could do the other part. So yes, he's going to make a profit if we're good or not, but he doesn't just want to make a small profit. Like he didn't go through all this stuff these past 6, 7, 8 months.
Like, dude, he's not doing what Snyder did, right? He's not doing he's just trying to make enough money so he can live comfortably.
And that goes back to what you were saying too. It's like you guys are so used to throwing a fit and getting your way because your last spouse treated you that way and ran the team as a fan. And now it's kind of just like, wait a minute, you're telling me I throw a fit for 5 weeks and I don't get my way? What the hell is this? Get this guy out of here. He sucks. And that's not how it works. You need to adjust. Okay. You need to adjust to how adults work. Okay. Exactly. And look, I'm a 33-year-old teenager. I get it. But at the same time, it's going to take as long as until we get they check themselves into therapy. It could be as long as it takes.
Josh Harris could approach me and say, do you think that we should listen to the fan base more, including yourself, Kyle? I would look him straight in the eyes. I would say, hell no.
Exactly.
Hell no.
I would say, if the fan base, we'd have Deshaun Watson here. And, hey, we would be miserable, but at least the massage parlor business would be booming. You know what I'm saying? So,
all right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode now. Reed just took a grenade to this entire thing. I appreciate all of you. I'm thankful for everybody that watches or contributes, Deuce, yourself to this show. Obviously, Thanksgiving was yesterday. I hope you guys had a fantastic holiday. I know Reed did, portraying a turkey all day, but I can't thank you guys enough for all your support.
I cooked my first turkey yesterday. First time ever doing it. And let me say, I was nervous because I was like, it's me. I'm gonna fuck it up. Like, it's gonna be undercooked. Something's gonna be wrong. Banging turkey. Best turkey of my life.
See? Low expectations sets up for
that's what I was telling
exceeding results. Yeah. Low expectations, exceeding results.
When you start a new job, fuck up. Don't go in there. You're setting the standards too high.
I ain't say that.
I am. Go in there, break the copying machine. Do something like that. Then be late every day for a week.
You got that 90-day period though, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. Then the expectations are they're very low. So the little stuff you do, all of a sudden it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Look, man, it's hard for me to follow my own advice, but I said this a couple weeks ago. We're playing with house money, everybody. We got a quarterback. We got an ownership in place that wants to win. As much as you want to question that, it's not really your place to. They put up everything they possibly had to be able to get this football team, and it wasn't just because of money. They want to bring the joy back to the area, and obviously money has something to do with it. But be happy, try to be, as crappy as it is. I don't like losing the Cowboys either. But that being said, we have two things that we've never had
Here
before.
we go.
So enjoy it. And this is a good place for somebody to come in and actually be a part of. And so that's a positive thing to look forward to in the offseason. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. But before we get out of here, Deuce, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to, brother?
Yeah, just Redzone in the Lab on all socials, all media, all that's wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, and if you're big on Twitter, if you haven't gotten to the spaces yet, please do. Redzone in the Lab, Deuces, everybody in that group chat has a hand in having spaces every single day. And you want to vent, you want to troll some people, come on down and have some fun with us. It's always a good discussion, and iron sharpens iron, and there's a lot of iron in that room. I'm not gonna lie.
We still waiting, Mike. You told me a month ago.
But then I get nervous. I like doing this because
I'm not sure if you want him in
I get
there.
nervous. I'm gonna say something that's not edited out.
Yes, dude.
I mean, look,
people.
Mike from Bleeding Burgundy, he just started. He started coming in as regular these last few weeks. So
yeah,
if we can take him. We can take him.
Okay, well that makes me feel better. Yeah. Okay, well there we go then.
Just
Looks
watch
like
what
Daddy's
you say,
on his
please.
way.
Just don't
What
go
are you
full
talking
norm.
about?
Don't go full norm.
I'm gonna say Kyle Ronick told me to say this.
Stupid.
Kyle Ronick told me.
All right,
that.
everybody. We will see you guys on Monday. Monday. So have a great, safe weekend. Enjoy your holiday weekend. If you're shopping out, have fun. If you're traveling, we appreciate you guys. We love you all. All right, everybody. We'll see you on Monday. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.